Hello everyone and welcome to another Star Wars figure review. First and foremost, got a couple of elephants in the room to address. Firstly, yes, new specs, and secondly, the Star Wars Episode 7 trailer. Holy cow! I don't know about you guys, I thought it looked awesome, can't wait for the film to hit, and I'll try and cover it in a little bit more detail in a future video. But for the time being, I want to focus on Star Wars Rebels, and we're going to take a look at some figures from that series in these next couple of videos. For this particular review, we're going to take a look at this guy. This is, of course, Agent Kallus, who is, of course, the Imperial Security Bureau officer from the Star Wars Rebels animated series. He's sort of the Inquisitor's right-hand man, and he's got a little bit of a grudge against Zeb. So we'll talk about all of that and more in just a little bit. But before we go into too much detail about this figure, let's take a look at the packaging that he comes in. Now I've got to say I'm a big fan of the Star Wars Rebels packaging. Firstly, it really does remind me of the Legacy Collection and Clone Wars packaging that was released in 2008. Obviously with the Stormtrooper as the main feature of the card back design. You've got a very cool image of Agent Kallus down in the bottom corner, as well as, of course, the Star Wars Rebels logo at the top. We've also got that dreaded Disney logo at the top corner as well, which obviously will be appearing on most Star Wars products over the next few years. And on the back, we do indeed have another image of Kallus from the series, as well as some of the figures you can purchase from the Star Wars Rebels line. Now, as you can see, we have got some movie characters integrated into the Rebels lineup, and that's because the Rebels figures come as part of the Saga Legends line. So the Rebels and Saga Legends have kind of been merged into one line, so you can pick up a wide variety of characters in one series. Hopefully somewhere down the line I'll be able to pick up Chopper and the Inquisitor, and as you can see there, there's Kanan and Ezra Bridger as well, which I have reviewed as part of the Reveal the Jedi 3-pack. So again, feel free to check them out on the channel. So that is the packaging that Agent Kallus comes in. One thing to point out about the new packaging for the Rebels figures as well is that it's really small, in the sense that it keeps with the Saga Legends packaging that we've seen over the past few months. You know, there's more compact, slimline designs, which is, you know, good, I guess. It saves on costs, and it does stand out on the shelf, which is the main thing that these figures need to do. So enough about the box, let's take a look at the figure inside, and here he is. As I said, this is a really cool figure, and I'm absolutely loving the character as well. Agent Kallus so far has got to be one of my favourite characters from the show, with the exception of the Inquisitor. I find it a little bit ironic that the Star Wars Rebels TV show is called Star Wars Rebels, yet the best and coolest characters seem to be from the Empire. Obviously, with the Saga Legends and Rebels lines becoming one, these figures do suffer from a lack of articulation, which isn't a bad thing on one hand, but on the other, you know, it kind of sucks. We're still paying a rather inflated price for these 3 3/4 inch figures, so you'd think that the price would drop a little bit given the fact that these figures don't feature as much articulation. But they're a bit cheaper than the Black Series figures, so I guess we can't complain too much. We do live in a world of inflation all the time now, so it's to be expected. The figure itself, though, is really cool, despite the lack of posability. The sculpt on this guy is really nice. I'm absolutely loving that helmet design. It's sort of a cross between a clone tank gunner from the Clone Wars, Commander Bakara from Revenge of the Sith, and General Veers from The Empire Strikes Back. You know, it's a real hybrid of various helmets from the saga. Absolutely love that. It looks really cool. Sadly, it's not removable, so you can't see Kallus's mutton chopped face underneath, but it does look very cool nonetheless, and I dare say that if these figures and characters are popular enough, that Hasbro will release them somewhere down the line in super articulated and realistic form. As you can see, he does come with a rather large weapon. I'm not 100% sure on the name, but I do believe it's the same sort of weapon that Zeb Aurelius uses, and in one of the early episodes of Rebels you get to see a little bit of a standoff between Kallus and Zeb. They have a little bit of a fight with those weapons. Not only are they blasters, but they also tend to extend into a sort of force pike sort of staff weapon, which is pretty cool. Going back to what I mentioned about Zeb and Kallus having a bit of history, as I said at the beginning of the review, it's revealed in one of the early episodes of Rebels that Agent Kallus is one of the members of the Galactic Empire who is responsible for the downfall of Zeb's homeworld. So obviously Zeb's got it in for Kallus, and Kallus isn't particularly fond of Zeb either, so they do clash quite a few times throughout the series. The rest of the figure is really nicely sculpted as well. As you can see, you've got the rank code printed on the chest, you've got the armour plate in there as well. Sadly, there's no hook on the back for Kallus to store his weapon. Obviously, from what we've seen in Rebels so far, when Kallus isn't using this rather hefty blaster, he does tend to store it on his backpack, but sadly there's no storage space for that. And as you can see, the uniform is very slimline, very simplistic, but very cool looking indeed. In terms of articulation, as I said at the beginning of the review, he does suffer somewhat from a lack of it, but again, the sculpt and detail kind of makes up for that. Kallus does feature a swivel neck, swivel shoulders, and swivel hips, so he does come with the standard 5 points, but again, it's not a major issue because the sculpt of this guy is really cool, and he just has that look, you know. There are certain figures in the Star Wars action figure line that when you see them you think, that's, you know, it's super articulated, sure, but it doesn't look particularly interesting. Whereas this guy, sure, he suffers from a lack of articulation, but the overall aesthetic of the figure is absolutely superb, and I'm a really big fan of this guy. Can't wait to pick the Inquisitor up to stand side by side with Agent Kallus. The one negative aspect of this figure is if we come around the back, we do have the serial number printed in white on the back of his leg, which does stand out like a sore thumb, and it does take away from the figure somewhat, although I dare say that some of you customisers out there have got a bit of nail polish remover or some black paint and have got rid of that. So again, I'm not sure if this is something with all of these figures or whether it's just my sample, because I've mentioned issues like this in previous reviews, and a lot of you have tended to say, well, mine doesn't have that, so we'll see how that transpires. But there we go, that is Agent Kallus, a very cool figure. These Star Wars Rebels figures are currently available at the Disney Store, although if you would rather shop online for these guys, then be sure to hit the link in the video description where you can pick this guy up at our good friends staractionfigures.co.uk. They've got some fantastic figures in stock at the moment, so be sure to check them out. So that's going to do it for this review on Agent Kallus from Star Wars Rebels. We're going to be taking a look at Zeb himself in my next review, so stay tuned for that. And until then, I hope you've enjoyed having a look at this guy, and as always, keep collecting, and may the Force be with you.